Chapter 20. A red light burst through the sky, and the terrifying power that swept everything in its path centered on the demon temple, suddenly engulfed everything within hundreds of miles. As the instigator of all this, Yumo, who was in the consciousness of the demon temple, naturally knew everything that was happening outside. However, Yumo, consumed by excitement, didn't have the spare energy to restrain her own power. Her attention was fully devoted to the transformation magic scroll. So far, everything was going smoothly. In other words, if the transformation magic worked, perhaps she could genuinely use this magic to obtain a body of her own. For Yumo, this was undoubtedly exciting news. After hundreds of years, she could finally have her own body and personally experience this other world. No longer would she be perpetually confined to a corner of the forest. Today is indeed a wonderful day, Yumo inwardly exclaimed. Following the scroll's instructions, she enveloped everything inside the demon temple with her shadow and soul power, sparing not even a single fragment. When the sword spirit used the transformation magic in the elf tribe, it would completely release the sword body made of steel and transform it into energy molecules. These molecules would then reconfigure and metamorphose into a humanoid form, aligning with the sword spirit's soul form. She was probably following the same principle. With this thought, Yumo's delight intensified, reconstructing a body that mirrored her soul form. Her soul form should look the same as his past life, right? Couldn't this also be another way to say me being reborn in this other world? Recalling his handsome face and robust figure in his past life, Yumo couldn't help but start fantasizing. After returning to her original body, she might be able to travel the world freely and enjoy delicious food and life like the male protagonists in novels and anime. By the way, I can now pick up girls in this other world and even establish a harem. That would be amazing, Tilda. Hehe, Tilda. Yumo couldn't help but let out an evil laugh. Also, once I return to my original body, I will legitimately tell those little girls to call me Daddy instead of Mommy. Now, let's see how they can argue with me, Tilda. Hehe, Tilda. Hurry up and call me Daddy. No matter what, life after obtaining a physical body is definitely worth looking forward to. As a result, under the influence of the desire to obtain a body, Yumo accelerated the mobilization of her own power. The soaring crimson pillar of light even began to show signs of expansion and eruption. After another round of energy compression and spatial collapse, the bloody red pillar of light that broke through the clouds and the endless red shadow energy that swept around began to gather continuously toward the center of Demon Temple, and the temple itself slowly disintegrated, turning into countless red energy particles that flowed toward its center with the flowing shadow power. These gathered powers gradually turned into a red energy ball full of destructive aura. At the same time, countless bloody butterflies flapping their wings flew from all directions and gathered around the ball, wrapping it in a cocoon made of butterflies. In this cocoon, the crimson violent energy began to condense and compress, gradually taking on a humanoid form. After a long time, the violent energy slowly dissipated, and countless bloody-colored butterflies scattered in all directions. Yumo's brand new body was now revealed under the shining sun. Is it all done now? After completing all the steps of the transformation magic, Yumo's consciousness gradually tried to disconnect from the consciousness space, and following the instructions in the scroll, began to establish a connection with her new body. The process of establishing the connection was quite smooth, and soon Yumo began to gradually gain control of her new body. And as the connection was established, a comfortable feeling of a breeze brushing against her face suddenly transmitted to her brain. This made Yumo feel joyful inside. This feeling. Is this the wind? How long has it been since I felt it? And this smell, the smell of soil? No, this is the smell of nature. I can touch, I can smell. Woohoo! The sudden surge of joy and excitement in her heart helped Yumo to suppress the incomparable drowsiness on her new body, and she slowly opened her eyes, wanting to observe this world with her own eyes, instead of relying on perception like before. As she opened her eyes, what greeted Yumo's sight was a blurry mosaic-like scene. However, as time passed, and with Yumo's eager anticipation, the images in her field of vision became clearer. What is this? As her vision returned, Yumo gradually noticed many black obstacles blocking her view. What is this? Is this hair? I don't remember my body having such long hair. Does transformation magic also have a hair-growing effect? Oh well, never minded. At least I don't have to worry about baldness in the future. However, this is really annoying. While complaining in her heart, Yumo tried to lift her hand and move away the obstructing long, beautiful black hair. But at that moment, her eyes suddenly widened and her heart trembled. Ahem. This is. This is my hand. This stunning discovery immediately jolted Yumo out of her unparalleled excitement and left her staring in astonishment at her slender, delicate hand. The hand was unusually beautiful, narrow, long but plump, with nails tinged with blue light and a soft, rosy hue. In any case, it doesn't quite look like my old hand. Or rather, it doesn't look like the hand most boys should have. This is my hand, Yumo exclaimed. And as her voice entered her ears, she froze in place. Because what she heard was not the masculine voice she used to have, but a beautiful, soothing, and enchanting girl's voice. Wait, what the hell? Is this my voice? In an instant, an ominous bad feeling surged into Yumo's heart. No, impossible. After taking a deep breath, Yumo resolutely reached down with her slender jade hand to her little brother. Unfortunately, her fingers did not touch her long-awaited little brother, but instead touched something soft and slippery that cannot be described. At that moment, an indescribable sensation pierced Yumo's brain like thunder, and a blush gradually appeared on her beautiful face. The existence that she had been longing to touch since she was transformed into this world was gone. She fell silent, and her body trembled involuntarily. Then, Yumo burst out with unbearable frustration. What is happening? Why have I transformed into a girl? The girl's hysterical scream suddenly echoed through the cold winter forest. The abyssal demons who heard the sound were frightened and shivering on the ground. Although they didn't know what had happened, their master seemed to be in a very bad mood. Snow Knight Empire. The city known as Wind City lies at the northernmost border of the empire, adjacent to the winter forest. It is essentially one of the front lines in humanity's resistance against the abyssal demons. In this city, inside the Marquis's mansion, sits Marquis Xiumu, a battle-hardened hero who has waged many wars against abyssal demons. He's now 110 years old and wears a sorrowful expression. His mansion, built on the mountainside, allows him to view the distant winter forest. Naturally, he witnessed the large-scale natural phenomenon just now. Already physically and mentally exhausted due to family problems, he couldn't help but feel extremely desolate after seeing the towering red pillar of light. The internal troubles, coupled with the external troubles that may come, made this veteran warrior feel helpless. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. "Come in," Xiumu said lightly. Following his words, the door creaked open, and a weary swordsman, bearded and clad in gray armor, stepped into the room. But before he could relay his report to the Marquis, Xiumu preempted him, asking not about the forest anomaly, but rather about his granddaughter. Asu, any news about Yuener? The old man's voice was laced with anticipation. To this, the middle-aged swordsman Asu could only bow his head in shame and shake it from side to side. Seeing this, Xiumu's spark of hope was swiftly extinguished. His old body slumped weakly onto his seat. Never mind, since there is no news of Yuener. What brings you here? My lord. Asu looked a little conflicted and looked in the direction of winter forest outside the window. My lord, about that. Did you not see the red light in the forest? That evil power, even I can feel it chilling. Oh, that red light. Temporarily putting aside his personal sorrow, Xiumu's expression gradually became serious. The natural phenomenon. This is a unique sight when a demon king is born. Perhaps there are even more terrible abyssal demons born in the forest. So what should we do? Activate the red alert and place the entire city on defense formation. Also, order the troops searching along the forest border to return immediately. Come back, what about young lady? Let them come back. With a serious tone, Xiumu ordered. Although I am worried about my granddaughter's safety, I can't gamble with the lives of everyone in the city. Once the Demon King is born, the monster within the range will be affected by its remaining energy. It is very likely that they will target Wind City after transforming into demons, so we need to prepare immediately. Plus, that red light. Its power. I have a gut feeling that this is not just a regular abyssal demon king. With this in mind, the old Marquis's expression became even more serious. As the city shifted into high alert, fear permeated the air surrounding the newly born demon king. With a clouded expression, Yumo moved her delicate and slender new body, making her way step by step toward Crystal Lake. Quietly, she gazed at her reflection in the water. The girl in the reflection had beautiful black satin-like long hair with crimson-red tips, which added a touch of allure to her temperament. Her eyes were as clear and bright as rubies, possessing a magical power that could capture one's heart and soul. Picture. Wow, so beautiful, Yumo mused inwardly, feeling quite taken with her radiant beauty. Snapping out of her momentary daze, Yumo rose to her feet and studied her unclothed body. She thought she had built up enough resistance to the female body after taking care of her silly daughters for so long. However, it seemed she had overestimated herself and underestimated her own body. Her slender and elegant figure, fair arms, lovely long legs, smooth and soft skin, and delicate, jade-like bones made her appear like a goddess gracing the earth. But the only flaw was her small chest, which she held in her hands, frowning in dissatisfaction. She felt that they were not heavy enough. To be honest, the protagonists in the Japanese anime and manga that Yumo liked to watch and read in her past life were all of the type with some weight in their chest. If she had a girlfriend, she would also hope that the other person could be bigger. The kind of soft feeling that couldn't be completely controlled with one hand was the best. However, the two whites on her own body, aren't they just small dumplings? Probably one hand could hold both. As she gave them a squeeze, they didn't feel very full, yet they were quite pleasant to the touch. Chen Ben. No, what am I thinking? Is this the time to think about these things? No, I shouldn't be thinking about these useless things. Suddenly feeling her thoughts going astray, Yumo quickly raised her hand to hold her head and shook her brain frantically, trying to shake off her dirty thoughts. After finally calming down, Yumo sat down by the lake, curling up her body and holding her thighs with both hands, looking like a withdrawn little girl. Oh, how did things end up like this? The black-haired girl couldn't help but let out a deep sigh. She wanted to have a body of a handsome male to go pick up girls, but now, who could she pick up? As the saying goes, magic turned against the magician. The one who was supposed to pick up his harem turned into the one being picked up. Did I make a mistake while using the magic? She couldn't help but cry out inwardly. Wasn't the transformation spell supposed to shape the appearance based on the soul's form? When I talked to that silver-haired woman, I distinctly remember my soul's form being a handsome young man from my past life. How could it have morphed into such a cute little girl? Where did things go wrong? Ahem. Wait a second. In a flash, Yumo's bright red eyes narrowed. The conversation she'd had with the silver-haired girl just before merging with the demon seed sprung to her mind. I have to do some modification first. Remembering the mysterious woman's words, Yumo felt a spark of realization. So it was you who reshaped my soul into this form. At this moment, when she thought of her little brother, who had already passed away, Yumo had the urge to ask the silver-haired woman for some comfort. Nonetheless, as she grumbled, Yumo was filled with confusion. Why on earth would she modify my soul to become a girl, for safety's sake? But what kind of safety? Could it be because she feared I'd get too absorbed in wooing women and not concentrate on my trials? Is that why she decided to take away my little brother? Wah. If that's really the case, Yumo would be at a loss for words. However, this was just Yumo's wild conjecture. As for the real reason why the silver-haired girl did this, Yumo was still in the dark. The only thing she could do was to mourn for her deceased little brother and shed tears of parting. Moreover, feeling the breeze blowing around her, the coolness on her skin made Yumo frown slightly. Blushing and covering her naked body, Yumo bit her lip and glanced around frustratedly. Even though no one was in sight, she felt embarrassed sitting in the forest completely bare. It felt like she was playing some sort of exhibitionist game. But if I follow this logic, does that mean I was streaking naked for hundreds of years before transforming? 00. Glancing down at her bare body, Yumo shuddered. Never mind, I don't want to dwell on this anymore. I need to find some clothes to put on soon. As night descended, a brand new hot spring came into existence halfway up the Ice Fang Mountains, located in the eastern part of the winter forest. Inside the hot spring, 3 girls with different shades of black, gray, and silver long, silky hair luxuriously cascaded down their backs. Their hair flowed in full, voluptuous arcs, much like trickling water in the hot spring. 3 breathtaking figures utterly naked, intertwined in the hot water. These girls were delicate and enchanting, with their captivating poses and skin as smooth as ice and as white as jade. Undoubtedly, they were the most exquisite and enticing beauties in the world, capable of making nearly every man succumb to their intoxicating allure. For those with a weak will, a single glance could cause fainting or a nosebleed. Or worse, they might die from sheer exhaustion after losing countless lives to the mesmerizing spectacle. At this moment, with the close contact of the girl's tender skin, the black-haired girl lying on a boulder couldn't help but flush red on her exquisitely beautiful face, emitting a soft moan that made people's minds run wild. The blushing and panting sound began to drift from her cherry-like mouth. Behind the black-haired girl, a girl with beautiful snow-white long hair and animal ears increased her strength after hearing the black-haired girl's comfortable moaning. MMM tilde, ah tilde tilde, MMM tilde tilde. Feeling the intense stimulation coming from her back, the black-haired girl trembled uncontrollably. The melody of the girl's charm broke the silence of the night. There. The black-haired girl was naturally Yumo, who had regained her new body. The 2 lovely girls beside her were Limo and Liu, her daughters. But don't get any wrong ideas. Yumo didn't do anything dirty with them. They were just giving her a massage. Looking at Limo, who was pressing her back, and Liu, who was kneading her arms beside her, a surge of happiness emerged in her heart. Half a day ago, upon realizing that she had transformed into a girl and had no hope of becoming a man again, Yumo dejectedly rose from the ground. Now that she was endowed with such a flawless body, she felt a reluctance to expose it to the bitterly cold wind, even though she didn't experience any discomfort. The intense cold within Winter Forest could easily freeze an unprepared fourth-level expert to death, yet it couldn't touch her. Looking around at the vast empty space, Yumo couldn't help but feel a little regretful. Although it's a bit of a shame that I didn't become a man, but I at least transformed into a human. At this moment, her original body, the demon temple, was completely vacant, leaving only a massive pit approximately 30 meters deep and 500 meters in radius. Reflecting on how the towering stone pillars, the immense murals, and the grand throne in the temple had all been incorporated into her dainty body, Yumo couldn't help but marvel at the wonders of magic. Who would have thought that these structures made of rock and steel could all be transformed into this small body? If the physics geniuses from my past life saw this scene, would they spring up from their graves? This thought prompted a faint smile on Yumo's face. At the same time, after glancing at her bare body, the black-haired girl blushed slightly. Though she had been a resilient building for so long, her subconscious still held onto the intense embarrassment of a human. Even in the absence of anyone else, she didn't want to stand there without anything hiding her body. Therefore, in order to quickly get rid of the embarrassment of being naked, with the protection of a group of bloody butterflies, Yumo quickly ran to the other side of the barrier, where the sacrifices of Divine Punishment sect were located. Looking at the children lying on the ground spitting blood and fainting, Yumo couldn't help but show a hint of relief. Thankfully, they're still alive. Thankfully, she had established a protective barrier around them before her transformation. Otherwise, the energy she had released during her transformation could have turned them into mere pulp. Even though they were severely wounded, to the point of coughing up blood and fainting, it was still a blessing that they were alive. Among these people, there may be talents who could fight against her in the future. It was a pity that they had died like this. After sighing for a moment, under Yumo's control, a group of bloody butterflies found a white cloak among the personal belongings of the Divine Punishment sect. After wrapping her body in the cloak, Yumo finally sighed in relief, feeling as if a massive weight had been lifted from her heart. This is much better. Soon, the girl began to carefully search through these items, preparing to find a complete set of slightly fitting clothes. Of course, if they didn't have any, she'd need to ask the abyssal demons to hunt some monsters and use their hides to create something for her. When she was in her demon temple form, she was used to employing the shadow power to conjure clothes for her little children. Now that I have a physical body, I should be able to do the same, right? This thought ran through her mind. Just then, two familiar presences suddenly entered Yumo's perception, prompting her to furrow her brow and look up. In the next moment, under Yumo's helpless gaze, the barrier started to ripple. Shortly after, two lovely and cute girls broke into her field of view. It was Limo and Liu who had hastily returned. As soon as the two sisters entered the barrier, their focus was immediately drawn to Yumo. Although they had never seen this stunningly beautiful girl before, when they met her gaze and saw the bloody red butterflies fluttering around her, they immediately recognized her identity. Liu was still thinking about how to get along with her mother, who had turned into a human form, while the beast-eared girl Limo simply followed her heart. After seeing the beautiful black-haired girl, Limo's eyes sparkled with dazzling stars, and she excitedly pounced on Yumo. Mother! Looking at the wild girl pouncing toward her, Yumo suddenly furrowed her eyebrows. Hey, you little rascal, wait, However, before Yumo could complete her sentence, the two round bumps on the wolf girl's chest pressed directly against her face at point-blank range. Boom tilde. Without any regard for her shadow power and the ground that cracked under their weight, Limo cheerfully knocked Yumo to the ground and lovingly rubbed her cheek against hers. While she rubbed, her husky nature aroused. The girl stuck out her tongue and persistently licked Yumo's pretty face, leaving the latter at a loss for words. Heh tilde tilde mom, heh tilde tilde, mommy tastes so good tilde. Hearing Limo's declaration and feeling the increasing amount of drool on her face, Yumo couldn't help but feel a wave of anger wash over her. Limo, you little imp. However, before Yumo could express her annoyance, Liu, standing beside her, could no longer stand by and watch, her forehead suddenly bulging with veins. Looking at her sister who had taken the lead, Liu was very unhappy. We agreed to stick together. The little gray-haired girl pouted and without a word, grabbed her sister's tail. Liu's eyes suddenly became sharp, and the jade-colored shadowy energy burst out of her body. Under the blessing of shadow power, the strength of Liu's slender arms suddenly skyrocketed. And in the next moment, Liu gritted her teeth and forcefully yanked her silly sister off her mother's body. Then, without hesitation, the girl threw her sister out of the barrier. Like that, under Yumo's dumbfounded gaze, Limo, who was licking happily, turned into a white meteor and disappeared into the sky. Limo meow woo woo. Huh. Does Liu usually have such a violent personality? Watching the beast-eared girl vanishing into the sky, Yumo picked herself up from the ground, momentarily at a loss for words. Meanwhile, after throwing her own sister, Liu hurriedly came to Yumo's side, crouched down in front of her with great worry. Mom, are you okay? That sister of mine is too impatient. You've just transformed and your body isn't stable yet, and she just barged in with all her power. Surveying the chaotic landscape around them, Liu's verdant eyes flared with anger. Seeing Liu's adorable, pouting face as she rebuked her sister, Yumo couldn't help but smile. Indeed, she was rather exhausted after transforming, and her mental power and shadow energy within her body had been significantly drained. Limo's reckless charge was really inappropriate, but to be honest, she didn't feel any discomfort at all, not even a smidge of pain when Limo collided with her earlier. Keep in mind, Limo's physical strength is among the strongest of the demon kings within demon kings. Even her unconscious charge is enough to crush a sane trank, 7th level, being into pieces. Yet here she is unscathed. It seems that this new body is much stronger than I thought. Then what rank am I now, Demon King? Staring at her delicate, fragile-looking hands, Yumo lapsed into a momentary reflection. However, Yumo's silence left Liu feeling anxious, fearing that her mother had indeed been injured by her reckless sister. If that was the case, she would undoubtedly team up with her other siblings to pin that foolish sister down and teach her a lesson. In her anxiety, Liu grabbed Yumo's hand and asked, Mom, are you all right? Did you get hurt? Huh. At Liu's question, Yumo snapped out of her world and looked at the gray-haired girl, who wore a worried expression. She then gently stroked Liu's small head with her hand. I'm fine, your silly sister didn't harm me, don't worry. I'm okay. After being patted on the head by her mother, Liu's face flushed a red, and she shyly lowered her gaze. A joyful blush spread across her face. Hee, mommy is touching me tilde. It's not an energy hand, but her real hand tilde. I'm the first one to be touched by her, right? Thinking of this, Liu couldn't help but feel a little proud, and a pleased smile graced her face, which left Yumo puzzled. What's the matter? Why are you laughing? Nothing at all. Liu quickly shook her head in denial, suppressing the smile on her face, and hastily attempted to shift the topic. Anyway, mother, you seem a bit dirty, don't you think? Dirty? Yes, a bit. After all, you've been sitting on the ground this whole time tilde. Yumo raised her eyebrows and looked down at herself. Her white cloak, draped around her body, was already marred with patches of dirt from Limo's tackle. Her delicate body bore signs of dust and soil, which had turned into a sticky mess, dampened by the moist air. Yumo couldn't help but show a trace of disgust on her face. Back when she was a temple, she didn't really mind the dirt, but now, Yumo disliked the idea of her fair, tender body being sullied by these impurities. Indeed, upon seeing her mother's expression, Liu quickly thought of a solution and took hold of her mother's wrist. "Mom, you're all dirty, let me take you to clean up. We could also take a dip in the hot spring." Clean up hot spring. Yumo was taken aback at hearing this. A bath? With this body? Thinking of this, Yumo pursed her lips and slowly lowered her head to look at her seductive body. The black-haired girl's face instantly flushed a deep shade of red. She hadn't even gotten used to this body yet. And she's supposed to take a bath. She was worried she'd pass out from a nosebleed halfway through. Yet she had to admit, the sticky sensation covering her body was indeed discomforting. Additionally, Yumo was curious about her new body. For a moment, she was torn over whether or not to take a bath. "Never mind, I'm not familiar with this new body yet, so let's skip the bath for now." Upon hearing this, Liu's emerald eyes suddenly flashed with a bright light. "It's fine, Mommy. If you're not used to it, I can help you." You'll help me wash." "Yes, just like how you used to help us bathe." Liu sweetly smiled and then eagerly pulled Yumo's hand. Her little face filled with earnestness. She looked up at Yumo with her big eyes, trying her best to look as cute as possible. "Can we, Mommy Tilda?" Yumo. Back to the present. Yumo, who was already disliking the sticky sensation, couldn't resist Liu's adorable appeal and ended up being led by the two sisters to the Ice Fang Mountains. She experienced firsthand what it was like to share a bath with her daughters. Although at first Yumo was still very shy, and her hands perpetually shielding her bosom and private area, after seeing the shameless attitude of her two daughters, she helplessly put down her hands and had a very sincere meeting with these two children of her. At the same time, her new body was also thoroughly studied by these two mischievous girls. Thankfully, the steam from the hot springs shrouded her flushed face. Otherwise, Yumo wouldn't know how to uphold her motherly dignity. "I have to get used to this quickly." Yumo made up her mind that she had to quickly get used to this new body and the experience of bathing with these two girls. After all, based on their current behavior, they seemed to genuinely enjoy frolicking with her in the water. Additionally, the massage skills of these two girls were quite impressive. Casting a glance at Limo behind her, who was diligently massaging her back, Yumo wore a pleased expression. She reclined leisurely on the rocks, her back entrusted to Limo and her arms to Liu. Having just obtained her sense of touch, Yumo could feel how comfortable this massage was. In that moment, she felt a wave of bliss. Indeed, possessing a physical body was a different experience. If she were still in her temple form, she wouldn't have even dared to dream of such pleasures. But wait, don't these two girls stay in the forest every day? Where did they learn their massage technique? Did someone teach them outside, like Sebastian and the others? Hold on a second, Sebastian. The thought struck Yumo like a bolt from the blue. She abruptly rose from her reclined position, leaving Limo and Liu beside her in shock. They asked, puzzled, "Mommy, what's the matter? Is the message not comfortable?" "No, that's not it. I just wanted to ask, where is Sebastian?" Upon hearing this, the two sisters Limo and Liu were stunned for a moment. Then they looked at each other and had a blank expression on their faces. After a moment's silence, it seemed to dawn on the two girls. Liu slapped her small hand on her forehead, exclaiming, "When we rushed back earlier, we left him at the northern peak." Meanwhile, in the northern section of Winter Forest, The nighttime temperature had plummeted dramatically. A middle-aged man with white hair, nestled within a tree hollow, had turned into a human popsicle. Foregoing his usual elegant demeanor, the refined butler Sebastian found himself cursing the nonchalant young girls, Limo and Liu, in his heart. Hold on, isn't there something wrong with cursing them like this? Within a village on the border of the Red Leaf Empire, with the monstrous roar of beasts as a backdrop, the earth-shattering purple energy force erupted with a bang, and the ground was instantly torn apart. A horrifying energy storm, imbued with a corrosive aura, swept across the surroundings. Countless village homes were instantly corroded by the purple aura, reduced to heaps of mud. The villagers and animals that failed to escape the combat zone in time were enveloped by the assault of the purple aura, and within moments became mere pools of blood. The crimson blood marred the earth, while the air was thick with the sickening smell of blood. Screams, howls, and monstrous roars filled the place. Witnessing their family members dying before their eyes, the surviving villagers cast terrified and resentful glances toward the village center. A monstrous black creature, standing about 5 meters tall and resembling a unicorn beetle, ceaselessly emitted a heavy aura. This creature was undoubtedly the cause of the paralyzing fear among the villagers. Abyssal Demon. Although the vast majority of abyssal demons were gathered within Winter Forest, numerous still lurked on the Anceta continent. These abyssal demons acted either on their instinct to hunt for sustenance or out of their desire to kill, often launching attacks on human settlements. Facing the powerful abyssal demons, ordinary humans stood no chance. Once an abyssal demon invades, they are faced with nothing but relentless despair. Just like the tragedy that befell the village of Karl today. However, compared to other villages attacked by abyssal demons, Karl village was undoubtedly fortunate. For today, the reinforcements from Asumo's church arrived just in time. Quick restrained. At the heart of the battlefield, a brown-haired young man named Cassis, donned in the church knight's armor, let out a thunderous roar with all his might. In the next moment, in response to his command, he, along with the 8 Asumo's church knights, all of them visibly wounded, simultaneously unleashed their holy magic in full force. The pure white light converged in their hands, further condensing into white energy chains. Under the traction of holy magic, the large energy chains suddenly burst out and locked the abyssal demon's 6 limbs, head, and body. Cassis, alongside the 7 other Asumo's church knights, roughly at 4th or 5th level, initiated a life-or-death battle with this peak level 5 abyssal demon. "Hang on," Cassis shouted hoarsely. As long as they could hold the abyssal demon in place, the magical cannon could eliminate it. However, Cassis and his companions had overestimated their abilities. Or rather, they had underestimated the horror of the abyssal demon. With the full release of the 8 people's power, the dense holy magic actually stimulated the ferocity within the abyssal demon, causing the shadow energy within its body to further erupt. This purple wave of shadow power washed over them like a torrent, inflicting agonizing pain on everyone. At the same time, the muscles on the demon's 6 limbs began to swell rapidly, while its power spiked abruptly. And in the next moment, under the horrified gaze of the knights, 3 energy chains were shattered by the demon's brute force. With a degree of its restraints lifted, the demon shifted its attention to Cassis, who possessed the most potent holy magic. Confronted by the gaze from its 4 fierce black pupils, Cassis couldn't help but shudder, his legs quaking uncontrollably. "It's over." As expected, after gradually freeing itself from its restraints, the shadow power within the abyssal demon erupted once more. It transformed into a purple fury, charging towards Cassis with a fearsome roar. Facing the absolute pressure, akin to the weight of Mount Tai bearing down on him, Cassis' spirit trembled. Strong instincts to survive urged him to flee, but the overpowering fear froze his body, leaving him only to watch the demon's claws grow larger in his vision. Despair ran rampant in his heart. "Help, help, someone help me!" Just as the demon was about to kill Cassis, a dazzling silver-white light suddenly pierced the despair-filled view of the man. And in the next moment, under the shocked gazes of all, the silver light unveiled a girl who slowly drew the sword from her waist. Shoo! Accompanied by a flash of dazzling silver light. The abyssal demon halted its charge, and the protective black energy encasing its body shattered with a loud noise. The abyssal demon's fierce head fell to the ground. This abyssal demon, that had left the church's knights helpless, was easily slain by a young girl. Some time later, Cassis, who was filled with joy of surviving the disaster, sat silently on the ground. Next to him was the medical team sent by the church, working hard to heal the wounds of these young knights. I survived. After calming down a bit, Cassis looked down at his own hands in disbelief. He had partaken in an abyssal demon suppression battle for the first time, and had deeply experienced the terror of abyssal demon. Despite their numerical advantage, they still failed to defeat the peak level 5 abyssal demon. He had almost met his end under the claws of the abyssal demon. Initially, Cassis had confidence in his abilities, but now he was deeply uncertain. At the same time, like many of his surviving teammates, he couldn't help but marvel at the silver-haired girl standing in front of the demon's corpse, seemingly deep in thought. And the moment he caught sight of the girl's face, Cassis found himself holding his breath. A blush slowly appeared on his dust-covered, blood-stained face. Being part of a prestigious family, he had savored an enchanting life, traveling through various scenic landscapes since he was a child. He had encountered all kinds of beautiful women, but compared to the silver-haired girl at a distance, those girls seemed insignificant. The girl, dressed in silver knight's armor, possessed a graceful figure and shiny silver-white hair that anyone would envy. Her violet gem-like eyes radiated a captivating gentle light and an unparalleled holy aura. Her soft, full red lips, a cute and delicate small nose, coupled with her stunning and elegant facial features made her an unparalleled beauty, as if she were the most exquisite creation of the Creator. No matter how beautiful the scenery or how brilliant the jewelry was, they all paled in comparison to the girl in the distance. When the silver-haired girl's gentle and beautiful gaze swept over them, all the knights couldn't help but feel a comfort surging in their hearts, as if their souls had been purified. "Oh, Goddess Tilda," Cassis and the others couldn't help but exclaim in their minds. In addition to her flawless beauty, the girl's strength also astounded everyone. She had actually slain a peak level 5 abyssal demon with a single strike, despite only being at the early stage of level 5 herself. It was simply unheard of. With her striking appearance and formidable strength, she was indeed one of the chosen ones who would lead them to save the world. At first, Cassis had some disdain for the girl's upbringing in an orphanage, but after today, there would be no trace of that previous contempt in his eyes, only pure admiration. All the knights, including the soldiers and medical teams who arrived later to assist, looked at the silver-haired girl with admiring eyes, just like Cassis. However, they did not notice that within the seemingly gentle gaze of the silver-haired girl, there was already a glimmer of coldness and a strong sense of disappointment. The chosen one, or rather, the girl of destiny, is the prophesied savior saintess of Asumo's religion. As the girl of destiny, she has an unrivaled affinity for holy energy and an incredible gift for creating miracles. She, alongside the Son of Destiny and a group touched by divine fortune, will rescue the entire world from crisis. She will guide the beings of Anseta continent in resisting the invasion of abyssal demons, eventually exterminating them and defeating the ultimate enemy, the Demon Lord. However, at this moment, the mood of this girl of destiny didn't seem to be very good. Gazing at the abyssal demon's corpse before her, and recalling the previous struggle of the 8 knights with the aid of advanced magical weaponry, the silver-haired girl's face clouded with increasing anger. 8 people using advanced magic weapons couldn't deal with one abyssal demon of the same level with such a miserable result. If she hadn't intervened in time, these people would have been at risk of being wiped out. These are the new generation of knights of the church. They are not outstanding, they are just useless. Even if the individual strength of abyssal demon is strong, how can 8 people together not be able to defeat it? This is really embarrassing. If the knights in other locations are also performing at this level, the notion of leading them to defeat the abyssal demons is an absurd fantasy. Teaching a dog to dance seems a more feasible task. Useless. Reflecting on this, the girl felt a profound disappointment in the church's next generation's abilities. Though she still maintained a symbolic smile, a hint of bone-chilling coldness inadvertently escaped from her purple eyes, causing the surrounding temperature to drop sharply. However, just as this chilling aura uncontrollably surged toward the Asumo's knights, a charming creature resembling a cat suddenly leaped onto the silver-haired girl's shoulder. A cute, urgent voice then reached the girl's mind through the wave of holy power. "Lady Menxi, please control yourself." Alerted by this voice, Menxi, the silver-haired girl, suddenly snapped back to reality. The chilling aura around her abruptly dissipated and was replaced by a warm, comforting holy aura. Casting a glance at the adorable creature on her shoulder, Menxi smiled apologetically and responded, "Sorry, Sakura, I momentarily lost my composure." Indeed, she must not yet reveal her disdain for the church, else they will impose even more restrictions on her. The white creature sighed helplessly, then locked its emerald eyes on the abyssal demon that had already died in front of Menxi. "Lady Menxi, how is your perception?" At this question, the silver-haired girl couldn't help but display a disappointed expression. The power within it is unmistakably the shadow's power, but the amount is so insignificant. Even if I were to absorb it, it wouldn't provide much benefit. So, peak level 5 demons are no longer usable. Not anymore, Menxi replied firmly. Relying on her current teammates to defeat abyss demons and venture into the winter forest seemed far-fetched. Rather than depending on others, it was more prudent to rapidly enhance her own power. The rate of hunting her holy power through peaceful practice was painfully slow, hence the necessity to absorb more power from abyssal demon. Not everyone could receive the shadow energy of abyss demon, but she could because of her special physique. However, weaklings like the one from today were absolutely useless. It was not even enough to get stuck between her teeth. She needed to seek out powerful demons to absorb their energy. Undeniably, with Menxi's current capabilities, confronting such high-ranking abyssal demons was fraught with danger. But she seemed to have no choice but to take the risk, unless she could find someone else with a higher quantity of shadow power in their body that would allow her to absorb it, and was obedient as pet. However, this was obviously impossible. Thinking of this, a look of hesitation appeared in Menxi's purple eyes. At that moment, a peculiar aura intruded upon the girl's senses. A cloud of dust arose, and a red-clad knight mounted on a warhorse materialized in Menxi's field of vision, emerging from behind a distant hill. In no time, The knight approached Menxi and respectfully bowed to her, saying, "Miss Menxi, Bishop Nick urgently requests your return to the base in Meze City." Huh. As always, Menxi concealed her emotions, adopting the pure and gentle countenance of the holy maiden, and regarded the red-clad knight in front of her with curiosity. "What's the matter? Why the urgency?" Gazing at the girl's beautiful face, the knight's heartbeat inadvertently quickened. Brushing off the distracting thoughts, he spoke slowly. "It appears a new Abyssal Demon King has emerged in the eastern part of Great Winter Forest. Archbishop Nick wants you to prepare immediately. We depart for the north tomorrow. Should we encounter an insurmountable crisis, we'll need your miracle." Before Menxi could respond, Cassis and the others, having heard the knight's words, jolted upright from the ground in shock. The joy of surviving the danger just now vanished instantly, leaving only an indescribable anxiety. "A new demon king in the north, is that true?" Cassis couldn't resist standing and asking. "Yes, the news from Wind City confirms it." "So, are we required to go as well?" "Yes." "Yes, is it to investigate?" In response to this question, the knight in red nodded slowly, affirming again. "Yes." "We're done for, it's all over." Hearing this, the 8 knights, including Cassis, sat back on the ground, their faces etched with anxiety. Throughout history, entering the winter forest was almost like a matter of life and death, and for instructors like them who had just become official knights, entering winter forest was almost a certain death. A wave of intense gloominess enveloped the team of 8 knights. However, compared to the mournful faces of Cassis and others, Menxi raised her eyebrows slightly after hearing this news and muttered to herself thoughtfully. A new demon king. A bold idea slowly formed in Menxi's mind at this moment. At the same time, in Windy City near the eastern edge of Winter Forest, a small team from the Asumo's Church's Sunlight Squad had finally reached this frontline town. One of the church's 10 heroes, the Earth Apostle Pix, stood on the city wall, his gaze fixed solemnly on the vast, eerily silent forest. After thinking for some time, Pix turned to his 4 teammates behind him and announced gravely, "Let's start the exploration mission now." "Wait, Captain, are you serious?" The muscular man, Beckham, stood up and voiced his objections without hesitation. "You know there seems to be a new demon king in the east. Are we heading in there? We might be signing our death warrants." "It's not as bad as you think." Pix slowly shook his head to dismiss his partner's concerns. "According to our estimates, the location of the newborn demon king and our planned exploration route are quite distant from each other. We may not even encounter it. Moreover, after a demon king's birth, it attracts a large number of abyssal demons. Most of the demons near the east should be gathered around the new demon king by now. If we explore now, our chances of avoiding the abyssal demons increase significantly." "But what if we run into the newborn demon king? Can we escape?" "Escape, not necessarily." Captain, have you lost your mind? We can't possibly take on the demon king, can we?" a team member asked incredulously. In response to this question, Pix nodded slightly in front of his puzzled teammates. "Yes, we'll fight. But how can we possibly win?" "There is hope," Pix said seriously, looking at his teammates. "Do you know why newborn demon kings let the abyssal demons quickly launch attacks on nearby populations?" "No idea." Everyone looked at each other, perplexed. Pix smiled slightly and said, "According to the church's records, demon kings are at their weakest state immediately after birth. They attack crowds or other monster groups to consume their flesh, blood, and souls, using this to replenish their energy. If we face a newborn demon king and we properly deploy the 5 elements array, we stand a good chance of defeating it." Pix's voice brimmed with confidence, his eyes aflame with determination. Completing the new route exploration, finding the trail of the demon temple, or defeating the newborn demon king. Accomplishing any one of these objectives would be a significant achievement, securing him more resources within the church. Perhaps he would then have the ability to break into the divine rank. Divine rank equals level 8. He wouldn't just be the apostle of earth any longer, but would ascend to become the 4th apostle of heaven of the Asumos church. That way, he wouldn't have to appease that woman. The risks were huge, but so were the rewards. In the early morning, the slightly gloomy sunlight shone into Winter Forest once again, dispersing the thick darkness and bringing a scene of rejuvenation. Of course, someone else who was rejuvenated was the poor butler. Escorted by several level 6 abyssal demons, he had finally returned to the eastern part of the snowy winter forest after a night's journey. Seeing the familiar landmarks, Sebastian exhaled in relief. Ah, finally! At this moment, Sebastian was very tired. His eyes were full of fierce bloodshot veins. His elegant black butler's uniform was also in tatters, stained with a lot of mud and snow, and his originally sleek white hair had become a mess, like a pile of weeds. Unquestionably, his current state bore no resemblance to the elegance he embodied when he first arrived at the forest. Looking at his disheveled appearance, even the normally patient Sebastian couldn't help but internally scold the sisters, Limo and Liu. Those two little miscreants. After witnessing Lady Yumo's successful transformation, they didn't even spare a word and just dashed back. The sudden release of shadow power and the consequent pressure knocked me off the cliff, resulting in many injuries. They were so engrossed in their excitement, they just abandoned me like that. Aren't they aware of how cold Winter Forest is at night? Darn it, I nearly froze to death. Sebastian was almost in tears. If he had indeed frozen to death in the mountains, it would have been a grave injustice. Luckily, in the end, the abyssal demons dispatched by Yumo found him in time and brought his luggage along. Otherwise, the consequences would have been disastrous. Sebastian silently recorded this incident in his little notebook. By the way, he already had 8 such little notebooks, all of which recorded how he was deceived by the 2 sisters from childhood to adulthood. Kind of feel bad for him. Looking at the familiar landmark in front of him, Sebastian knew that he had reached the outer perimeter of the barrier. He then very consciously jumped off the back of the 6-legged abyssal demon and opened his spatial ring. A brand new butler's uniform appeared in his hand. Although he was looking forward to seeing Lady Yumo's humanoid form, he had to tidy up his appearance before that. So, 20 minutes passed just like that. Ready to go, he transformed back into the charming old gentleman he was before and slowly walked into the barrier after finishing his preparations. Looking at the scene inside the barrier, he was slightly taken aback. The once grand and magnificent demon temple was now gone, leaving only a large open space and a deep pit. The stark difference in scenery made him feel a bit sad. Childhood memories were gone. At the same time, he confirmed his inner speculation that Lady Yumo had successfully transformed, and the secret magic of the elf tribe worked. Thinking about how their Black Rose household had helped their savior and mother-like figure solve one of her most difficult things, transformation, he couldn't help but smile with joy. From now on, their family would have a higher standing when competing against their rivals. The Duke would undoubtedly be thrilled upon hearing the news. As Sebastian was deep in thought, a clear melodious voice, akin to a celestial harmony, resonated in his ears. "Are you okay, little Sai?" This voice. Upon hearing the familiar address, Sebastian visibly shuddered and promptly turned toward the direction of the voice. The sight that met his gaze was a beautiful black-haired girl donned in a simple fur coat. The girl's extraordinary beauty and her ruby-like eyes momentarily stunned him. However, with the composure honed from years of practice, he swiftly regained his poise and respectfully bowed to the girl. Given she referred to him as Little Sai and spoke in a tone often used with elders, along with the sight of several bloody butterflies fluttering around her, the girl's identity was unmistakable. "Don't worry, milady, I'm fine." "That's good. Allow me to apologize on behalf of Limo and Liu, those two reckless girls. They shouldn't have left you alone." "It's okay, milady, I don't really mind. But actually I do." Sebastian gently smiled and shook his head in a gentlemanly fashion. Regardless, he still hoped to maintain a positive image in Lady Yumo's eyes. As for Limo and Liu, he would settle the score with them later. But wait. Looking around at the empty surroundings, he furrowed his brows slightly. He didn't see Limo and Liu anywhere. Ordinarily, after Milady's successful transformation, these two would be hovering around her. So where did they go? "Are you looking for Limo and Liu?" Seemingly grasping his confusion, Yumo gently opened her mouth to speak. "Those two girls mentioned they were going hunting, so they left earlier. They should return shortly." "Hunting? Do you mean they went hunting?" asked Sebastian. "Yes." Upon hearing this, he pondered for a moment and glanced in the southern direction. If he remembered correctly, the kind of hunting those two girls referred to wasn't the ordinary sort. It seemed that some overconfident fool had come in again. However, this was not his concern. He had more important tasks to do. With that thought in mind, Sebastian took a deep breath and turned his attention back to the captivating girl seated on the boulder. Observing the simple fur attire on the black-haired girl, Sebastian felt compelled to make a suggestion. "My lady, now that you finally have a human form, it would be appropriate for you to have suitable clothing." "Clothes?" Yumo pursed her lips and silently looked down at her fur coat. To be honest, with such a flawless body, this rough fur coat seemed a bit inappropriate. Acknowledging his point, Yumo nodded slightly. "Yes, when we go to the human society, I should get some clothes. But I can't wear this kind of clothes there, right? I'll probably be mistaken for a savage." A hint of concern appeared on Yumo's lovely face. Upon seeing this, Sebastian flashed a smile, taking a step forward and offering his help. "No need to worry, milady. The Duke and I have already prepared some clothes for you." "Prepared already?" Yumo asked in surprise. "Yes, considering the possibility of my laddies successfully transforming, we prepared them in advance. And to ensure a proper fit, we have prepared various types and sizes of clothes." "Oh, that's very thoughtful," Yumo couldn't help but admire. As expected of the Black Rose family, always reliable Tilda. "Well, may I see these clothes?" She was curious to try these otherworldly garments. Particularly, she was intrigued to try the cool night outfit she'd previously seen. "We're confident you'll be pleased, my lady," Sebastian declared with conviction. After giving a self-assured smile, Sebastian directly took out 5 very precious space rings from his luggage and suddenly released them. In the next moment, under Yumo's expectant gaze, a series of blue spatial fluctuations suddenly rippled through the area. Immediately after, hundreds of dazzling sets of clothing appeared in Yumo's field of vision. She stood there shell-shocked, because she realized that all of the clothes were exclusively for women. It even included sets of all kinds of women's underwear, thick, thin, sexy, and even hollowed out. The black-haired girl's eyebrows twitched involuntarily. She didn't know why, but she suddenly had the urge to beat Sebastian up. Elsewhere, on the outskirts of the eastern portion of Winter Forest, following a flash of emerald light, a delicate gray-haired young girl materialized on the top of a towering tree. Studying the Asumo's church group who just stepped into the forest from a distance, Liu's eyes narrowed slightly. Her gaze was focused on the blonde man leading the group, and a chilling, Uncontrolled killing intent surged from her eyes. The symbol of the Apostle of Earth, a hero. This is the ABFIOTF Heaven brand ceremonial dress. How about this Eloise Loro-style dress? Milady, would you consider this Lolita-style outfit? I find this cheongsam quite charming, don't you, my lady? Or perhaps this one, I highly recommend it. It's the latest trend in Snow Knight Empire this year. Even the princesses are wearing it. Given your beauty, you would look stunning in it. Well, milady, wouldn't you give it a glance? Please don't ignore me. There. Yumo had originally planned to ignore Sebastian's introduction and pick out clothes herself. But after listening to him ramble on about dresses for half an hour, she couldn't take it anymore. Her forehead bulged with veins as she burst out. Dresses, dresses, dresses. Enough with the introductions of dresses and women's attire. Then the girl's red eyes narrowed slightly as she calmly raised her hand and snapped her fingers. Suddenly, a strong gust blew, and a large shadow blotted out the sun. A demon that resembled a vulture descended from the sky and lodged its furry paw in Sebastian's mouth, effectively silencing the butler. Woo-wee-woo. Sebastian tried to resist and exerted all his power to fight against the demon's strength. Unable to bear it any longer, Yumo rolled her eyes and said, "Okay, little Sai, I can't wear any of these outfits. They're too flashy and complex." Observing the pink and white lace dress that Sebastian had just handed her, Yumo couldn't help but twitch her eyebrows. At that moment, the demon suddenly let out a mournful cry. It turned out that Sebastian had used his teeth to sever a tuft of hair from the demon's paw. After spitting out a mouthful of feathers, he quickly spoke up. "Milady, you need not worry about not knowing how to put these clothes on. The Duke has prepared a complete set of instructions. Just follow them step by step. It's not that complicated." Arg. Yumo couldn't help but rub her forehead. She decided to dismiss the Duke's thoughtful gesture. "By the way, didn't you prepare any men's clothing or something?" Men's clothing. Upon hearing this, he seemed somewhat puzzled and asked, "Why would you need men's clothes?" "I mean, how did you know whether I transform into a man or a woman? What if I transformed into a boy?" "Well, to tell you the truth, Duke Zio mentioned that your voice is always soft and pleasant, and Limo and others refer to you as mother. Besides, you can sew clothes and cook, so we never considered the possibility of you being a male. And even if you were, according to Duke Zio, you'd still be a cute boy. You could still wear these outfits." "Oh, I see." Upon hearing this answer, Yumo couldn't help but roll her eyes. Sigh. If only I had corrected them firmly when they first called me mother. Also, did I transmit my voice in a sweet tone into their minds? After all, I cannot hear the transmission myself, so I'm not quite sure. Hold on, soul transmission. Typically, soul transmission is supposed to convey the voice of the soul into the other person's mind. But it seems my soul has been altered by that woman from before. I suddenly understand why those little ones insist on calling me Mom all the time. At that moment, Yumo seemed to have solved a long-standing puzzle. Then the girl slowly lifted her head and regarded Sebastian, who was restrained by the small little demon, with a mixed expression. "Don't you have a spare butler's suit in your luggage?" Sometimes I do, but I'm 1'9'6", 2 feet meters tall, while you, Lady Yumo, are only a little over 1'6'5", 2 feet meters tall. It's not very suitable, is it? Let's forget that for now. Let's quickly discuss the style of the clothes. My lady, you could try this white velvet set. It seemed that Sebastian was gearing up to launch into another blah blah blah. At this point, Yumo sighed helplessly. Just be quiet." As soon as the words were spoken, the vulture demon, acting on her command, forcefully clamped its claws over Sebastian's mouth. "Honestly, every time we talk about clothing, he transforms into a different person. I am so speechless, Tilda." Once she saw that Sebastian was temporarily unable to talk, Yumo jumped down from the massive stone and silently strolled into the fashion corridor in front of her, scrutinizing these extravagant pieces of attire. Indeed, she had to admire Zio's taste. Each piece was very beautiful and unique. If I were to wear them myself, it would surely make me look stunning, right? Sai, what am I even thinking? Yumo smiled awkwardly and shook her head. Although her body had inexplicably turned into that of a girl, she had no intention of wearing a dress. Some things are either done once or never, and countless times. On that note, these clothes are so beautiful and come in various sizes. Why not let Limo and Liu wear them? Wouldn't those two look even cuter once they're dressed in these clothes? After picturing how her daughters would appear after dressing up elegantly, Yumo couldn't help but become excited. However, Liu should be fine. She's quite obedient and should take good care of these clothes. As for Limo, I feel like it might be somewhat wasteful to give her clothes. She might end up discarding them each time she reverts to her original form. It seems her education still has a long way to go. After a while of careful observation, finally, Yumo's gaze settled on a black robe dress. Compared to other dresses, this outfit was less feminine, not low-cut, not backless, and had no variety of jewel decorations. It was relatively modest and simple. It was also black, a color that Yumo quite fancied. In fact, after surveying all the various clothing options, Yumo wasn't really inclined to wear any of them. She had intended to obtain some clothes from the unconscious survivors of Divine Punishment sect. But then she thought about how long Sebastian and Zio had prepared for this, so she decided to give them a face. Although the clothing was not perfect, it was the thought that counts. Let's just go with this one. After making her decision, Yumo snapped her fingers lightly, and the vulture abyssal demon grabbed Sebastian and took him out of the barrier, sending him to where the others. Right now, Yumo was alone inside the barrier, and everything was peaceful again. After ensuring there were no others around, the girl peeled off her coarse animal skin clothes, revealing again her slender and appealing figure. The girl's delicate body was still smooth and white, tinged with a hint of pink, enticing and alluring. Although she had meticulously studied her new body the previous night, when it was exposed to her again, Yumo couldn't help but blush a little. It seemed that she needed some time to get used to it. In addition, although the girl's body was perfect, there was a large, eye-catching piece of torn cloth on her torso. It was the fluffy square pants that Yumo had crafted the night before. She didn't plan to remove them, as she still couldn't accept the custom-made lace panties that Sebastian had presented her. If she really wore that kind of underwear, her male dignity would probably be buried in the grave. As for bras, did her modest breasts really necessitate them? It wouldn't matter whether she wore one or not. As for shoes, they are all too fancy. She could do without them. So the girl slowly picked up the black robe dress before her. Just then, Yumo's eyes narrowed slightly, and a sudden surge of energy rushed into her perception, causing her to feel a tad surprised. Then she turned her head toward the southern part of the forest. That energy, holy power, and I sensed the energy of Limo and Liu there too. Why are those two girls clashing with them? At this moment, Marta, one of the elite members of the Sunlight Squad, finally realized what true despair was. The deep darkness was like the Evolist virus, quickly breeding in a person's heart, completely enveloping it in darkness, plunging it into an endless abyss, and completely blocking out the light. She followed the Pyx, one of the 10 apostles, with the desire to gain fame and fortune upon completing this exploration mission. After receiving the church's reward, She had planned to retire and live out her days peacefully. However, no one expected that this journey would be their squad's last adventure. The seemingly ordinary villager girl they had met outside Winter Forest was the harbinger of their despair. The harmless-looking villager girl, devoid of any magical aura or power, astonishingly managed to control the abyssal demons and landed a heavy blow to their squad. Witnessing this scene, Marta was extremely shocked, but she hadn't reached despair just yet, as there was still an Apostle of Earth in their team, their captain, the hero Pix. On Ensita continent, power levels were classified into 8 levels. The first 6 were relatively easy to achieve. Beyond that were the more challenging 7th level Saint rank and the 8th level Divine rank. 8th level equals Demon King. And each of these levels has 4 stages. Low equals, mid equals, high equals peak. Upon reaching these 2 last levels, one's physical strength and aura would undergo earth-shaking changes. 3 level 5 might be able to challenge someone at level 6, but even 10 level 6 might struggle to defeat a single saint rank. And their captain Pix was a 7th level sword saint. With the unleashing of his power and holy aura, his pure holy power instantly suppressed the nauseating black energy of the demons. Marta couldn't help but cheer in her heart. Despite losing 2 team members, with their captain stepping up, they would undoubtedly be able to handle those 2 abyssal demons. Their captain could assuredly defuse the crisis, just as he had done numerous times in the past. Marta had such faith in him. However, just as the hero was about to retaliate with his released holy power, a snow-white wolf-shaped demon burst forth from the forest, shattering the hope in her heart, and before she could alert the hero, he was killed. Everything unfolded too swiftly for Marta to react. The hero's defensive aura, his robust armor and his sturdy body, all could not withstand the wolf's bite. In a flash, one of the 10 great apostles of Asumo's church, and the strongest person Marta had ever trusted, was gone. No, this is not right. There's still hope. Just as despair consumed Marta, she spotted a glimmer of hope. Her black eyes locked onto the gray-haired little girl not far away. That little girl, yes, it's her. She's controlling the abyssal demon, and it seems like Snow Devourer obeys her too. If I can capture her, I can survive. What's more, this little girl appeared to have almost no power. With this thought, Marta gritted her teeth, forcibly resisting the overwhelming force of the nearby shadow energy, and sprung towards the gray-haired little girl. If I can just seize control over her, perhaps I can alter this omen fate. However, in the face of Marta charging at her and risking her life, the little girl maintained a playful smile, her emerald eyes narrowing slightly. Under Marta's puzzled gaze, the little girl slowly lifted her seemingly soft and powerless hand. A jade-colored light suddenly gathered at the little girl's fingertips. As the light gathered, a powerful pressure rivaling Snow Devourer erupted from the little girl's body. In an instant, the mighty force rushed towards Marta like a hurricane, swallowing her whole. How is this possible? She's at the level of a demon king. The intense force shattered the holy magic surrounding Marta's body, causing her to struggle to maintain her composure, eventually kneeling to the ground. She tried to resist further, but to her horror, she found she couldn't move at all. All she could do was fixate her fear-filled gaze on the girl in front of her. Just a little bit of her power. Is there such a strong and powerful demon in this world? The thickness of her shadow aura is no less than Snow Devourer. Marta was almost certain that the girl before her was an abyssal demon king. Upon realizing this, the tiny spark of hope that had ignited in her eyes was snuffed out mercilessly. In its place arose an insurmountable abyss of despair and confusion. A demon king. A humanoid demon king. What is going on here? Numerous doubts sprouted in Marta's mind. Unfortunately, she was too weak to ponder these questions. Perhaps the Demon King, the little girl, had no intention of affording Marta any time to think. Hee Tilda. With a dismissive chuckle, a jade-colored light flickered in the little girl's eyes. The compressed jade-colored power of shadow in her hand was suddenly released. Like the Reaper harvesting souls, it roared toward Marta and swung the merciless soul-reaping scythe. The next moment, Marta's eyes widened in shock as the jade-colored light hit her. The light in her eyes extinguished instantly, and her body was torn to shreds. Then a strange green flame suddenly ignited from the cut in her body. Within seconds, it burned her to ashes, leaving no remnants. Not even her soul survived. Too many overestimate their abilities. Looking at the woman who had been completely eradicated, the gray-haired little girl, Liu, muttered with disdain. Then the little girl's gaze shifted to the nearby battlefield. After she killed Marta, the battle had already ended. What was once a riverbank blanketed with ice and snow was now coated with a layer of bloody red. Pieces of flesh and pools of blood were everywhere. Even Liu's own clothes were smeared with someone's entrails. Gazing at the grim ruins, Liu frowned. Damn it, my clothes, the ones Mom made for me, are dirty now. As Liu wiped her clothes, a large white wolf slowly approached her. Its low howls resonated in her ears. Awu, 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 awu. Why are you cleaning your clothes? Hurry and clean up the scene before Mom finds out. There's no need. I can't hide it from Mom anyway. Liu responded nonchalantly, shaking her head. To this, Limo seemed slightly puzzled. She tilted her head toward her little sister and questioned. Awu, 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 awu. But what if Mom gets mad and scolds you? You promised Mommy after the last incident not to attack the people from Asumo's church, remember? To this question, Liu shot her sister a glance and eyed the remnants of the Earth Apostle in her sister's mouth helplessly. Don't worry about me, sis. You should worry about yourself more. With your reckless eating habits, what if Mommy finds out? You'll be in bigger trouble. Awu, 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 awu. Huh, I'm simply enjoying my food, okay? And what's there to fear? Mom isn't here now. By the time she notices us, I'll have already digested him tilde hee tilde. The giant wolf known as Limo laughed fearlessly. However, the next moment, Limo stopped laughing because she looked up and saw that her mother had appeared in front of them without her realizing it. Her mother was staring at them angrily. Meow. Acting cute won't save you this time. What the? You two disobedient girls. Looking at the mess in front of her, Yumo couldn't help but clench her cherry lips in anger as she glared fiercely at the two sisters not far away. Noticing the unmistakable human flesh in the giant wolf's mouth, Yumo's eyebrows knitted together in displeasure. Limo, I've told you countless times, don't eat these things. As the demon temple for hundreds of years, Yumo was well aware of the habits of abyssal demons. Their bloodthirsty and hunting nature was instinctive and hard to stop. However, for those abyssal demons who had the wisdom and had taken on human form, perhaps out of selfishness, Yumo always hoped they could change their habit of eating raw meat. Isn't it better to live a more elegant life? When she saw that Limo was still eating the humans despite her warnings, Yumo couldn't help but scold her as she approached. Although Limo was fearless in normal situations and extremely cruel to enemies, in front of her mother and peers, she was a complete waste of cuteness. After seeing her mother's fierce approach, Limo trembled all over, lost her dignity, spit out the meat in her mouth and shrank into a husky, hiding behind her sister Liu, stealing a glance at Yumo from under her sister's skirt with a nervous look. Seeing this, Yumo couldn't help but massage her forehead. At the same time, as she caught sight of the damaged Asumo's emblem on the ground and the sword with the symbol of an apostle, Yumo let out a long sigh. The girl's heart was quite depressed. Without a doubt, her daughters had attacked the members of Asumo's church again, killing one of the 10 most important members, one of the 10 apostles of Earth. These apostles were an important pillar of the church, and an important force to assist the chosen ones in fighting the abyssal demons in the future. Such an important piece cannot be easily lost. The combat power on the Anceta continent is already far weaker than it was 500 years ago. Rare beings like apostles can't afford to die like this. Moreover, if these heroes are trained properly, they might even ascend to the 8th level in the future. Sigh. Yumo sighed, looking at Liu with a reproachful gaze. Liu, didn't I tell you, don't kill the heroes. Even if you're making things hard for them, don't kill them, let them go. This way they can gain experience from a desperate encounter. But you've directly killed them. Honestly, why are you two so disobedient? Yumo raised a hand to her forehead helplessly. Even though I give up on Limo, Liu usually listens to me. I told her last time to spare the apostles temporarily. Why did she? She found herself at a loss. Did I make a mistake in my education, or did I not explain it clearly? As she pondered, suddenly she heard the sound of a little girl crying. Yumo looked over and saw Liu with tears in her eyes, her pearl-like tears falling from her white and tender cheeks. Her emerald eyes were full of grievances, as if someone had bullied her. Yumo was momentarily stunned, and even Limo, who was hiding behind her, looked confused. What's going on? Why is my little sister crying? Limo asked. After a moment of hesitation, Yumo softened her expression and walked over to Liu. She embraced the little girl and asked, "What's wrong, honey? Why are you crying?" Liu choked up but managed to say, I didn't disobey you, Mommy. I didn't want to kill them. But wasn't that your idea? Limo meowed in confusion. Yumo blinked in confusion. What do you mean? Yumo gently wiped away Liu's tears with her hand and waited for her to calm down before asking again. Liu, what do you mean? There, why are you crying suddenly? I actually. Take it easy, there's no rush. Yumo gently wiped away the tears from Liu's face. Meanwhile, after sobbing for a while in Yumo's embrace, the little girl seemed to calm down gradually. She lifted her head and looked at her mother. Mom, I didn't disobey you. I didn't want to kill them. Yumo was confused by Liu's words. What are you trying to say? I wanted to lead them out of the forest because there were many 7th-level abyssal demons ahead. I was afraid they'd get killed. Limo meowed. There were level 7's demons. Where are they? As she said this, Liu's eyes welled up again, and she pointed to one of the severed hands that belonged to a dark-skinned man. Then, when I wanted to take them away, that bearded, muscular uncle suddenly started to touch me, trying to take off my clothes. I was scared and I accidentally killed him. After that, his teammates wanted to kill me. So my sister and I had to fight back. As Liu narrated her experience, her eyes filled with an even deeper sense of being wronged. Mommy, I didn't mean to disobey. I really didn't, woo-woo. Hearing Liu's words, Yumo's eyes narrowed and her heart clenched. Following Liu's pointing finger, she turned her gaze to the severed black hand. Upon discovering Liu's aura on the severed hand, and the residual magic of the man on her shoulders, arms, and clothes, an indescribable anger and chill erupted from Yumo's eyes. The image of a muscular man bullying her petite daughter involuntarily formed in Yumo's mind. What? Harassing my daughter, damn scum. And intending to do it to my child, how dare you? Considering Liu's usual obedience, Yumo chose to believe her daughter's words. The slight dissatisfaction toward Liu in her mind disappeared instantly, replaced by endless disdain and disgust toward the hero's party. With their moral character, they don't deserve to be called heroes. Under her displeasure, Yumo's eyes narrowed slightly. A crimson aura suddenly spread out, and in an instant, the fragments and bloodstains in the area dissipated into nothingness, and the remaining souls were devoured by Yumo's bloody butterflies. After cleaning up the scene, Yumo gently patted Liu's small head. "My dear Liu, it's all right. You're a good girl and none of this is your fault. Those dreadful people are to blame. Here, let me dry your tears." As she listened to Yumo's comforting words, Liu gradually stopped sobbing and silently buried her small head into Yumo's bosom, hugging Yumo's slender waist tightly. However, in Yumo's embrace, no one noticed the cunning smile gradually appearing on Liu's face. On the other side, once she saw that her little sister not only wasn't scolded, but was also comforted by their mother, Limo's mind was in a daze. Is this allowed? Despite her confusion, Limo still tried to mimic her sister's pitiful look, tucking her ears back and whining to her mother. "Mom, I was also bullied by them too, so I couldn't help but eat him." However, instead of sympathy, Yumo just rolled her eyes at Limo's words. "Forget it. What kind of illness do they have to bully you in your demon form?" She then embraced Liu and quietly walked into the forest, leaving the small white wolf frozen in shock. Yet that wasn't the end. After a few steps, Yumo spoke again. "Also, lying and eating raw meat. You are not allowed to eat for a week as punishment." As Limo listened to Yumo's verdict, she was even more confused and upset. "Why only me? This is so unfair." Deep within the great winter forest, an astonishing scene is quietly unfolding, one that would baffle countless observers. At this moment, a barefoot, minimally clothed, black-haired girl is strolling leisurely through the snow, seemingly unfazed by the icy ground beneath her. She is holding the hand of a very frail-looking little girl, and behind them is a pitiful white wolf. Surrounding them are dozens of huge, fierce-looking black demons. However, these bloodthirsty abyssal demons, who normally love killing, are now showing no sign of violence. They were silently guarding the two girls and driving away any foolish monsters who come close. If someone were to witness these bloody abyssal demons protecting humans, it would surely cause a huge uproar in the contain. However, these girls are not humans. In a sense, they are demons wearing human skin. Under the protection of several abyssal demons, Yumo is holding the hand of Liu, slowly walking on the snowy terrain. Meanwhile, Limo is walking behind them like an abandoned, homeless puppy, sulking and constantly complaining. Mother is unfair, Liu is a bad liar, she grumbles nonstop. Although Liu's airhead sister hasn't directly spoken about her complaints, Liu, who has spent many years with her, can easily read her thoughts and understand what she was saying. However, she has no intention of helping her plead with her mother. Her silly sister needs to learn to be smart and clever on her own. Moreover, for them, who are at the level of Demon King, not eating for a year is no big deal, let alone just a short week. It's also important to control her sister's gluttonous habits. Therefore, Liu chooses to ignore her sister's resentful little eyes and looks at her mother again. At this moment, while Yumo is silently walking deeper into the forest, she was also thoughtfully examining the delicate silver sword in her hand. This sword is the weapon used by the previous apostle, Pix. After cleaning up the scene, Yumo took all the usable weapons and space rings of the hero's team. Since they had already attacked her family, she might as well make the most of their spoils. She was also curious about the quality of the hero team's equipment and whether there had been any advancements over the past few centuries. As Yumo continued to examine the weapons without speaking to her, Liu pouted and shook her mother's hand like a spoiled child. But compared to Limo, who constantly revealed her true nature, Liu was better at hiding her emotions and soon completely concealed her displeasure, still looking like a well-behaved little girl. Then the small, gray-haired girl pointed to the symbol on the sword hilt, asking with the curiosity of a child. "Mommy, what does the golden symbol on the sword hilt mean?" It's the number 8 in an ancient language." "8? Why put 8 on the sword?" In response to the little girl's question, Yumo smiled and explained. "It denotes the ranking of the apostles in the church." "Ranking? What does that mean?" "Well, it's like a level of strength. The so-called 10 apostles of the earth, taught by Asumos, are the hero we often talk about. They are ranked from 1 to 10 according to their strength. The smaller the number, the stronger they are." "Oh, I see. The apostle we defeated this time ranked 8th, so it's not that strong." Liu responded in low voice. "Correct, 8th, so relatively far down." Although there was a hint of disappointment in her emerald eyes, Yumo mused aloud. "Well, strength-wise, I'm still curious about something, Liu." "What is it, Mom?" "How did you feel about the opponent's strength when you fought against them? Were they stronger or weaker than the apostles who came to our doorstep before?" "Well, about that." Liu's face was slightly twisted with an expression of confusion. "I'm sorry, Mom, that guy died too quickly. Sister killed him in one move, so I didn't really see him fight and couldn't tell." "Ah, he died too fast. That's okay then." Yumo shook her head slightly with disappointment. "What's wrong, Mom?" "It's nothing. I just wanted to know the overall strength of the hero's team now." Slightly squinting her crimson eyes, Yumo had already predicted that one of the protagonists would become the saintess of Asumo's church, and that the so-called 10 apostles of the earth, 3 great apostles of heavens, and the Holy Knight Order would all become the protagonist's power against the abyssal demons. To ensure that the trial went smoothly, the abyssal demons she sent out at the beginning had to be something they could deal with. Otherwise, if several demon kings directly confronted the church, they would be wiped out. Sending an overly powerful abyssal demon could result in annihilating the enemy, while dispatching one too weak may inflate the enemy's confidence. It's quite a tricky balancing act, she thought. Yumo thought to herself. She believed it was necessary to understand the current combat capabilities of the church across the continent in order to send suitable challenge demons. Moreover, Yumo herself was curious about the church's strength. Whether or not she could be easily defeated was an important factor. Beyond the church, Yumo also needed to understand the combat abilities of the entire regular army across Ansita continent. As the saying goes, know your enemy and know yourself, and you will never be defeated in 100 battles. Recently, she obtained a humanoid body and could go and check it out herself. As for where to go, Yumo thought to herself. Isn't the Wind City of Snow Knight Empire the closest place to the forest? I heard that there are many fortresses on the outskirts, and elite troops are stationed there. Elite troops? It seems like something to look forward to. While muttering to herself, Yumo looked toward the southeast, hoping that at least over there, she wouldn't be disappointed like she was with this broken sword in her hand. Thinking of the sword, Yumo glanced at it with slight displeasure and let out a disdainful cold snort from her mouth. A weapon made of source steel. Tusk, the forging technology of weapons also needs to be improved. The next moment, the delicate and smooth fingers of the black-haired girl exerted a bit of pressure on the sword's blade. With a crisp sound, the silver sword, supposedly capable of slaying an abyssal demon of Demon King level, shattered into countless silver fragments, scattering across the snow. The sword couldn't even cut her hair. Meanwhile, at the Asumo's church headquarters in Red Leaf Empire, inside the main hall of the divine capital, a discussion about the new Demon King in the east of the Winter Forest was in full swing beneath the statue of the goddess in the center of the hall. At that moment, Archbishop Nick, who was giving a passionate speech to rally the masses, suddenly felt a special soul signal rushing into his mind. Then a look of shock and disbelief appeared on his old face. The next moment, Nick abruptly stopped his speech, and without looking back, he rushed out of the hall, leaving behind a group of bewildered congregants standing there at a loss. As Nick left the hall, he headed straight toward the direction of the Hall of Heroes, clenching his fists tightly. Pix, how did his soul's signal suddenly disappear? Could it be that he's dead? Inside the magnificent cathedral of the divine capital, within the heavily guarded Hall of Heroes, a man clad in silver armor and golden hair stood in disbelief. How is this even possible? How could Pix have died like this? His face was filled with shock as he stared intently at the 10 blue soul gems embedded in the goddess statue's staff. These gems weren't just for decoration. They were specially designed to reflect the hero's life force. The brighter the gem, the stronger the hero. A dimming gem signaled a weakened state, and a shattered gem meant the hero had died. In front of him, one of the blue gems had already shattered, marking the end of a hero's life. It had been 100 years since the last unexpected death of a hero, and now his close friend, the 8th Apostle Pix, had met his end. Overcome with emotion, he turned anxiously to the red-robed elder beside him. "Father, what's happening? How did Pix die? Was it those heretics from Windy City?" "No," Archbishop Nick replied, shaking his head. He looked slightly displeased at his son, Philippe. "How many times must I remind you to address me as Archbishop within these church walls?" "Oh, Philippe," another golden-haired man, glanced at the 2 black-robed knights beside the statue of the goddess, feeling a little embarrassed as he nodded slightly. "Sorry, Father, I mean, Your Grace. If he wasn't killed by these heretics, then how did Pix die? Who would dare attack one of our church apostle? Are you saying he was really killed?" "Who told you Pix died in Windy City?" Nick interjected, his face showing a trace of annoyance. "Your old friend was supposed to be on standby there, but he got reckless and ventured into the forest against the pop's orders. Consequently, he died needlessly outside the forest. What a foolish mistake." Pix was an apostle personally trained by Nick, and he was a great asset to him. Pix's unexpected death in the winter forest was undoubtedly a huge loss. Even more significant was the fact that Pix was the first apostle to die in winter forest in a century, a blemish that could jeopardize Nick's future prospects for becoming pope. Damn it! The more I think about it, the angrier I get. Nick's old face became more and more ferocious, making Philippe feel a bit scared beside him. At the same time, Philippe was filled with confusion. On the outskirts, there shouldn't be many high-level abyssal demons there, right? Pix was a 7th-level sword saint. How could he die so easily? Could there be a mistake? No mistake. The battle location has already been found, and judging from the concentration of shadow energy left at the scene, it's clear that Pix faced a demon king. A demon king? But they're usually found deeper in the forest, not on the outskirts, Philippe said, puzzled. Who knows? But with Pix's strength, even if he cannot defeat a demon king, he should be able to escape, right? Their team brought many teleportation scrolls. However, after hearing Philippe's words, Nick couldn't help but sneer. "You stupid kid. When a sword saint meets a demon king, most of them can only be killed in seconds. Escape? Impossible. As for those teleportation scrolls, they are only suitable for use when they encounter a group of abyssal demons. As for encountering a demon king, it is too late to activate them." "What, killed in seconds?" Nick's words made Philippe stunned. Obviously, his father's words were completely different from what he usually heard, and he couldn't help but exclaim again. "No, Your Grace. Don't our apostles have the strength to challenge demon kings? Before, the teachers also told me that 3 apostles working together can definitely kill a demon king. How could they be killed in seconds?" You. Hearing his son's words, Nick helplessly rubbed his forehead. At this moment, the archbishop suddenly realized that he had been lacking in educating his son. After sighing slightly in his heart, Nick smiled bitterly and said, "Philippe, in the future, don't believe everything the teachers say. The words spoken in the academy, the comments on major news, and even our own speeches are mostly just used to deceive the believers, including the strength of the apostles. In reality, even the last 8 apostles working together in the past couldn't defeat any known demon king. The demon king level is the real monsters." Philippe felt like his entire understanding of the world had just been turned upside down. If that's true, why does the church say otherwise? Why do the academies teach that? How else would we keep people's faith, or attract more followers, or increase our revenue through tithes and offerings? Think, Philippe, think. This. Caught off guard by his father's blunt words, Philippe fell silent, taking a moment to absorb this new, unsettling information. So now, if the Demon King appears outside the eastern forest, won't it be very dangerous for the team we sent there? The nearby defenses may also be attacked, right? I know. Nick nodded without giving a clear answer. There's a newborn Demon King emerging in the eastern forest. To amass souls and blood, he might lead an attack on nearby defenses and cities. I've already ordered our teams to retreat. As for the fate of the people in those cities and outposts, Nick's face gradually became fierce. To him, the possible invasion of the Demon King was not a crisis. For the Asumo's church, it was a great opportunity. As for the life and death of those heretics and civilians, it doesn't matter. On the contrary, the more they die, the better. We can use their deaths to wage a propaganda war and deal a heavy blow to the reputation of Snow Knight Empire. This way, we can further develop our power within Snow Empire. However, if we want to gain the belief of those barbarians, we need to do something else. What do we need to do? Just like what we did in the Western countries before, play the role of savior. When the abyssal demons and the Galrose border of Snow Knight Empire both suffer heavy losses, we will appear with divine weapons to save the people from the fire and water. Oh, I understand. By then the people will turn to us. But what if we really encounter a demon king? You don't have to worry about that. Nick smiled slightly and took out a scroll and a token with an exquisite wing symbol from his spatial ring, handing them to Philippe. You should leave now and inform Snow Knight Empire about our willingness to cooperate in resisting the abyssal demons. Also, give this scroll, which I personally wrote, to their emperor. With this token, go to the Golden City and find Bai, and let her lead her troops to support the Wind City. Miss Bai. Upon hearing this name, Philippe's internal unease dissipated, and his face showed a hint of excitement. With Lady Bai's help, our plan would surely proceed smoothly. Once successful, the influence of his father's faction within the church would greatly increase. When that time comes, fantasizing about his beautiful future, Philippe couldn't help but show a greedy smile on his face. However, in the next moment, he seemed to think of a very serious problem, and his face suddenly stiffened in place. He looked a little embarrassed at his father, who was grinning at him. Your Excellency," he said hesitantly. Is there something else?" Your Grace. What if the abyssal demons and their demon king decide not to invade? What's our plan then?" Nick. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the video and comment down if anything wrong in the story, and if have any suggestion to a new novel or want next part of any series, comment down. Our target is to get 1K subscriber. There will be SUPRISC for all of you. Stay tuned.